Hello and welcome. I'm Geeta Mohan and you're watching World Today. Now, world leaders gathered at Normandy to commemorate the 80th anniversary of D-Day, which defeated Hitler-led Nazi regime. Here is a detailed report. Leaders of the Allied forces of US, UK, Canada and France came together to commemorate the 80th anniversary of the Normandy landings on June 6, 1944. D-Day was the largest military seaborne operation by the Allied forces to attack the German forces and liberate Nazi-occupied Northwest Europe. France's President Emmanuel Macron and the First Lady, along with US President Joe Biden and Jill Biden, commemorated the D-Day ceremony at a US cemetery in Normandy. The French President also honored 11 American veterans with the Legion of Honor, France's highest civilian and military award.
Ce lieu comme cette cérémonie disent notre dette à l'égard de ceux qui sont tombés, comme de ceux qui ont survécu. Et vous voilà, aujourd'hui, à nos côtés.
This place, like this ceremony, speaks of our debt towards those who have fallen, as well as to those who survived. And here you are today by our side. In the summer of 1944, you were barely 20 years old, maybe less. You had a family, friends, a fiancé, a wife, sometimes children. You had dreams, plans, a future, and you left everything, crossed the ocean and landed on the shores of France 8 decades ago. You left everything and took all the risks for our independence, for our freedom. We will not forget this. Thank you.
Pour notre indépendance, pour notre liberté. Cela, nous n'oublions pas. Merci.
President Biden paid tribute to the veterans who sacrificed their lives to put an end to the tyranny of Hitler.
We know the dark forces that these heroes fought against 80 years ago. They never fade. Aggression and greed, the desire to dominate and control, to change borders by force, these are perennial. The struggle between a dictatorship and freedom is unending. Here in Europe, we see one stark example. Ukraine has been invaded by a tyrant bent on domination. Ukrainians are fighting with extraordinary courage, suffering great losses, but never backing down. We will not walk away. Because if we do, Ukraine will be subjugated, and it will not end there. Ukraine's neighbors will be threatened. All of Europe will be threatened. And make no mistake, the autocrats of the world are watching closely to see what happens in Ukraine, to see if we let this illegal aggression go unchecked. We cannot let that happen. To surrender to bullies, to bow down to dictators, is simply unthinkable.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and the First Lady too arrived in France for the commemoration. Zelensky's presence comes on the sidelines of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The King and Queen of England, along with the Prince of Wales, too joined the war veterans of the World War II in Portsmouth.
Those who gathered here in Portsmouth would never forget the sight. It was by far the largest military fleet the world has ever known. Yet all knew that both victory and failure were possible, and none could know their fate. Aircrew flying overhead, sailors manning warships, or troops in assault craft battering their way through the stormy swell to the shore, whether dropping by parachute, landing in a wooden glider, or taking that terrible leap of faith onto the beaches. All must have questioned whether they would survive and how they would respond.
British Army paratroopers recreated a drop into the fields of Normandy on the eve of the 80th anniversary.
80 years ago, the weather broke, and the greatest invasion force in history left the shores of Britain to liberate Europe. We are here today to remember the sacrifice of the tens of thousands who did not make it home. And we are here to honour the service of those who did. Men like Ken Cook, 18 years old. He'd never been on a boat before. He'd never been on a beach before. Yet, with his regiment, the Green Howards, he landed in the first wave to storm Gold Beach.
Enactment of the British troops landing on the beach in Arromanches on an amphibious vehicle on D-Day brought in memories of veterans who sacrificed their lives and freed Europe from the atrocities of Hitler.
When you go home, tell them of us and say, for your tomorrow, we gave our today.
All my buddies are gone. All my buddies are waiting for me up there. Think of it. I'm the last man. And when I joined the National Guard in 1938, I was 15 years old. And the 135th Infantry Unit that I joined, their logo was, "To the last man." I am the last man.
Prince William, the Canadian and French Prime Ministers, also attended a ceremony for the Canadian troops who landed on Juno Beach in Normandy in 1944. With Mahashweta Lala, Bureau Report, India Today. Joining me on Spotlight this weekend is Walter Lindner, the former ambassador of Germany to India. Many thanks for joining us here on India Today, Walter.
Good evening, Meena. It's good to be there.
Thank you so much for doing this. Let's begin with the 80th anniversary of the Normandy landings. And President Biden said, and I quote, "We cannot let that happen. To surrender to bullies and to bow down to dictators is simply unthinkable." Is the Europe and US now prepared to fight and protect Ukraine? Because we will talk about the fact that there was a time when Soviet Union fought the Germans to protect the world from fascism, from Nazism. And now we are looking at a reverse order. Can we avoid a World War III?
Yeah, it's very true. These 80 years make a really big difference because it was a different situation 8 years ago. And now, because of the aggression war of Putin, things are totally different. Putin is not invited. And this, this is just an expression of how serious the situation is. It's not only that Putin has invaded Ukraine. By doing so, he has sort of giving a bad example for all nations in the world. What can happen if a bully nation is just out of the blue invading his neighboring country? And for the other point, I think, which is important, is he has now changed the world, the whole chemistry of the world. Everyone is talking about military, about wars, about aggressions, and the money is diverted from, let's say, development projects towards war productions. This can't be in the interest of anyone. So this is all because of this aggression war.
Well, it's all good right now because we have Democrats in the United States of America, but a lot can change for Europe. And will Europe be able to prepare itself militarily, Ambassador Lindner, if Trump comes to power? Because Trump has already said that if he comes to power, he will let Russia do whatever the hell it wants. And I'm quoting him again. So is Europe and NATO really prepared to counter those challenges militarily, economically? When it comes to US, should there be a situation where US does not support the NATO and Europe as much as it is doing right now?
Well, you know, I'm not a big fan of the what-if questions. What if Trump would be winning? You know, this is a democracy. Let's see. Both sides have the chances to win. And if everyone can have his own preference. I do certainly have my preference, as many others in the world might have. But, you know, this is the vote of the American people. Let's see. And then let's see whatever has been said before elections, in an election campaign, what is the truth afterwards. This is true for every country. Yes, we are prepared to further assist Ukraine, as we have done from the day one, because we have seen it from the day one. It's unlike for India. Ukraine for us is a neighboring country, and the borders are just bordering the European Union. So that's why for us, this is a crucial conflict, which is really dominating quite a lot of our agendas. So that's why we have, from the first day on, we have supported Ukraine with all the help they needed, and we are certainly ready to continue that, right. Whoever wins in Washington.
All right. Again, when it comes to the Russia-Ukraine war, we are looking at it, the world looks at it. A lot of them criticized India for its position, but the world is looking at it like a European war. In that, we've seen Germany come out in support and has been providing with support, weapons, so on and so forth. But in a larger scenario, what is the kind of support that will continue for Ukraine at a time when Ukraine has been saying that not enough is being done and that they really require a lot more in terms of weapons, ammunition, support from the West? Do you think there is more that can be done? And in another scenario, can Germany ever play peacemaker, mediator in this war?
Well, you see, there are two big conferences coming up in the month of July. One is in Berlin, which is a reconstruction, Ukraine reconstruction conference, where you have a lot of actors coming together and talking about what can be done afterwards. You know, after one day the war is over, what can be done to reconstruct the country, to help getting on the better footing again. So this will be an important conference, and there's another one in Switzerland. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, India is also going to participate there.
Absolutely.
And which is also a conference where people talk about possibilities of what would be the ingredients of a peace, which is, of course, which you need two parts, and Russia is not there. So it is a tricky situation, and I'm sure behind the scenes there are people who think about what can be done if the day X comes, when there is a window of opportunity, whether this is a European country who could help there, or whether it would be India or what would be other countries. That remains to be seen. By the way, India has a big advantage because it has good connections to both Ukraine and to Putin. Right. And by the way, to Palestine and to Netanyahu, and to China and to Russia and to Europe and to the US. So there are not many, well, there's no country on this planet who can balance between different powers and power blocks as India does. And they did it very skillfully with a great foreign minister. So whether this might be a decisive factor one day, it remains to be seen, because at the moment it doesn't look like Putin is willing to do anything which smells of negotiations.
Ambassador Walter Lindner, thank you so much for joining us here on India Today.
You're welcome.
Facing political pressure over the influx of migrants, President Joe Biden has signed an executive action that will temporarily shut down asylum requests that would go into effect immediately.
Doing nothing is not an option. We have to act.
U.S. President Joe Biden announced new restrictions on migrants caught illegally crossing the U.S.-Mexico border. His executive order on Tuesday could deny those migrants the chance to claim asylum, and they could be quickly deported or turned back to Mexico. The Biden administration said the new measures will take effect immediately and will have exceptions for unaccompanied children, people who face serious medical or safety threats, and victims of trafficking. The sweeping enforcement effort, which is temporary, comes months after Congress failed to pass legislation.
We came to a clear bipartisan deal. It was the strongest border security agreement in decades. But then Republicans in Congress, not all, but walked away from it. Why? Because Donald Trump told them to. He told the Republicans, it has been published widely by many of you, that he didn't want to fix the issue, he wanted to use it to attack me.
Biden, a Democrat, has toughened his approach to border security, as immigration has emerged as a top issue for Americans in the run-up to the November 5th elections, where he will face Trump, a Republican who has vowed a wide-ranging crackdown if reelected. Registered voters prefer Trump over Biden on immigration policy by a 17-point margin, according to a Reuters Ipsos poll conducted in mid-May. The new asylum policy is activated when the daily average of border arrests tops 2,500 over a week, and will be paused when arrests drop below 1,500 per day, the official said. The last time crossings fell to that level was in the early months of the COVID-19 pandemic.
This action will help us gain control of our border, restore order into the process. This ban will remain in place until the number of people trying to enter illegally is reduced to a level that our system can effectively manage.
The new restrictions resemble similar policies implemented by Trump and use a legal statute that served as the underpinning for Trump's travel bans, blocking people from several majority Muslim nations and other countries. Biden said he will continue to work closely with the Mexican government on border issues and said he had spoken with President-elect Claudia Sheinbaum Monday. In advance of the announcement, Trump's campaign issued a statement criticizing Biden for high levels of illegal immigration and said the move to exempt unaccompanied minors would encourage child trafficking.
Now, hours after Claudia Sheinbaum was elected as the first female president of Mexico, woman mayor of a western Mexico town was shot dead. Details on what really happens when it comes to crime in Mexico with the new presidency. The mayor of a western Mexico town, Yolanda Sanchez, was shot in the town of Cotilla hours after Claudia Sheinbaum was elected as the first female president of the Latin American country. Claudia Sheinbaum secured between 58.3% and 60.7% of votes to become Mexico's first female president. Sheinbaum will succeed her mentor and outgoing Mexican leader, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, on 1st of October.
Agradezco también porque por primera vez
I want to thank you as well because for the first time in the 200 years of the Republic, I will become the first woman president of Mexico. I did not get here on my own. We all got here together. Our female heroes who created the nation, our female ancestors, our mothers, our daughters, and our granddaughters. I congratulate all the Mexicans that by participating in the election demonstrated that Mexico is a democratic country with peaceful elections.
Que el día de hoy, con su participación,
residents in Mexico City were divided about the landslide victory of Sheinbaum.
We will have to live another 6 years in corruption with those who haven't been able to stop the mafia and everything that is hitting our country. It is a very rich and hard-working country, but because we don't have good leaders, we can't get ahead. We hope that there is support, and we are seeing that there is support, and we hope that promises will be fulfilled. We are happy because it was an election where there was not so much bloodshed. It was calm in a way, and we are celebrating the victory.
I honestly didn't think she was going to win by so many points. I thought it was going to be a bit more contested. I don't know if Morena has done well or badly. For me, it is more like a clash of powers. I don't think it reflects the interest of the people, but the interest of a few. I think it is still a bit more of the same as with the PRI party years ago.
Mexico is rated as one of the most violent countries for women in the world by the United Nations. The country currently sees at least 10 women and girls killed on a daily basis, with tens of thousands of women missing. The vast majority of femicides go unprosecuted. With crime rate against women being one of the major concerns for the country, it will be interesting to see how Claudia Sheinbaum will improve the living conditions for women in Mexico. With Neha Kumari, Bureau Report, India Today. South Africa's ruling African National Congress has begun closed-door negotiations with its political opponents to begin talks about forming a coalition government. Take a look at this report.
South Africa's African National Congress now has a choice to make. Which of its opposition rivals will it turn to after suffering its worst election result in 3 decades? These are the ANC's main potential coalition partners.
Where we govern, we make sure
the Democratic Alliance is the next biggest party. It secured 21.8% of the vote to the ANC's 40.2%.
to ensure fair access.
A deal with the pro-business DA would be favoured by investors, and DA leader John Steenhuisen is open to talks. That is, to prevent more radical parties like the Marxist economic freedom fighters from getting their hands on the levers of power.
The purpose of these initial talks will be to gather information of what options are available to the DA as we seek to rescue South Africa from doomsday.
However, the DA is also seen as a party of white privilege, which it refutes. Some analysts say the ANC, a party synonymous with black South African liberation from white minority rule, would be unlikely to pick it as a sole coalition partner. Local media have reported the DA could enter into a cooperation pact with the ANC. That would see it support key decisions in exchange for top jobs in Parliament. The conservative Zulu Inkatha Freedom Party, with nearly 4% of the vote, could also prove useful in making up the numbers. At the other end of the political spectrum is the economic freedom fighters led by Julius Malema. It's a more natural fit for the ANC than the DA, though relations are tense between former ANC youth leader Malema and some of the party's factions.
If there's any party that we can work with and work properly, is the ANC. Because ANC, when compromised, is not arrogant.
However, some of the EFF's policies would likely give investors the jitters. It has pledged to nationalise gold and platinum mines and seize land from white farmers. The EFF said in April that it would partner with the ANC if it got the powerful post of finance minister. However, with just 9.5% of the vote, joining with the EFF alone still wouldn't give the ANC a majority. Indeed, the EFF was outperformed by Umkhonto we Sizwe, led by former President Jacob Zuma. It emerged as the third biggest party after the ANC and the DA on 14.6% of the vote. But despite performing better than many had expected, the newly formed MK, as it's known, has said it is considering a court challenge to the results.
Don't start trouble when there is no trouble.
Analysts have long feared Zuma's party may stir up trouble if his supporters, who rioted and looted for days when he was jailed for contempt of court in 2021, reject the results. A coalition with MK would also be a bitter pill for the ANC to swallow. It has struggled to clean up its image after the corruption scandals of the Zuma era. The election represents a seismic shift in South Africa's political landscape. Official results show the ANC on 159 seats in the 400-seat parliament. That's down from 230. The result has been inflicted by South Africans angry at unemployment, inequality and rolling power blackouts. But in Johannesburg, residents like student Kathy Maku are hopeful for a brighter future.
Around 400 million European Union citizens had voted to elect members of the European Union Parliament. This four-day voting from June 6th to June 9th was one of the biggest democratic events in the world. The election took place across 27 member states. Netherlands was the only EU country which held its single-day vote. The Dutch voting comes 6 months after Geert Wilders' far-right party became the biggest party in the national parliament. Voters will elect a total of 720 members of the European Parliament, or MEPs. The number of members elected in each country depends on the size of the population. It ranges from 6 for Malta, Luxembourg and Cyprus to 96 for Germany. In Belgium, Germany, Malta and Austria, the minimum voting age is 16. It is 17 in Greece and 18 in other EU countries. Once the MEPs are elected, one of the first tasks will be to approve the next European Commission. The wars in Gaza and Ukraine, as well as defense and security, have been the main campaign issues this time around. That's all in this edition of World Today. Stay tuned to India Today for all the news and updates. Goodbye and take care.